You say, Brother Wright, I think it would be too depressing to hear and to feel and see what the lost are going through. Let me tell you something right now. It's also very motivating because it's what Jesus did. If you go a page or two over, you'll see Isaiah 63:9. This is what it says about Jesus. In all their affliction, he was afflicted, and the angel of his presence saved them. In his love and his pity, he redeemed them. He bare them and carried them all the days of old. Whenever a person is afflicted, the Lord is afflicted with them. He's not some God who's afar off, who's insulated himself from you or this world. He feels it. He's not wrapping his hands in glee, waiting for the moment that he can send somebody to hell. He grieves over it. He looked at Jerusalem that had rejected him and that was about to crucify him, that was going to mock him and spit on him. And when he looked at that city, he wept over that city. Oh, if you'd only known what was available to you, but you missed it. He wept over that. He didn't rejoice over that. He didn't feel vindicated over that. In all of their affliction, he was afflicted. And I'm not going to take the time to read it. You've heard it preached from, but you need to read it again. Isaiah 53, about him being despised and rejected of men. Verse 4 says, surely he hath borne our griefs. He bore our griefs. He carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. He was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him. And I'm going to distance myself from the hurt of the world, from the sigh, from the cry of the lost. The one that experienced all that lives in me. Does he live in you? Not all the lost are lost because they want to be. Look down at the bottom. Matthew 11:20 through 24 talks about the unwilling lost. Jesus said to Chorazin and Capernaum, if the works that had been done in you and you rejected had been done in Sodom and Gomorrah, they would have repented to this day. And in the judgment, all the miracles, Jesus is saying to them, all the miracles I've done in you, Chorazin, all the miracles that I've done in you, Capernaum, they're going to stand in judgment against you. And Sodom and Gomorrah, whose sin was so great that God rained fire down out of heaven and consumed them while they were alive. Their sin was so great. But he said, in the judgment, it's going to be easier for them because they did it in ignorance. They didn't know. But you, Capernaum, and you, Chorazin, you've had a chance and rejected it. There's people out there that are lost only for one reason. They don't know any better. They're not willingly lost. They'd get saved if somebody gave them a chance. They're not living in blindness because they want to be blind. They're not living hopeless because they want to be hopeless. They don't know any better. Look at number 2, the unable lost. Jesus talked about the man that was laying beside the pool of Bethesda. Do you want to be whole? He said, sir, I don't have a man to help me into the pool. I have no man. He doesn't want to be lost, but he's not able to be saved by himself. The neglected lost. The man on the road to Jericho. You know the story, you can read the scriptures, but I'll just summarize it quickly. The man on the road to Jericho who was robbed and left half dead. How can you be half dead? But he was left half dead. The priest came and saw him laying there and passed by because he didn't want to be contaminated. The Levite, who was also a worker in the house of God. He wasn't a priest, but he was of the priesthood family because all the priesthood came out of the tribe of Levi. And those who were not in the specific family of Aaron to be priests, they were Levites. These were both spiritual people in Israel who served in the house of God. But neither the priest nor the Levite could be bothered with this one. And the Samaritans, the despised half-breed Samaritan. And Jesus knew what he was saying when he said this to the Jews. But the priest wouldn't stop, and the Levite wouldn't stop. But a Samaritan stopped. When he stopped, he got off his own donkey. He was riding till he saw the man. And now he's walking. He bound up the man's wounds with his own materials. He poured his own oil and wine in the wounds to disinfect and to soothe the pain of the wounds. Bound it up himself, put the man on the donkey, and took him to an inn. And told the keeper of the inn, take care of him. And when I come back through this way, if it costs you more than I've given you, I will pay you all I owe you. Jesus is not going to be indebted to you for whatever it costs you to reach the lost. When he comes back, he's going to pay everything he owes you for your labor and then some. He will never be indebted to you for what you've done. How many out there are the neglected lost? They're just not of our social category. They have problems. Maybe they're drug addicts or alcoholics, or maybe they're poor people and they can barely get by. They're not worth our time. And finally, I've already mentioned this one, the ignorant lost. Jesus wept over them because they didn't know. They didn't know what it was available. And they rejected it, though they didn't know it. I'm going to finalize this seminar with some of the most powerful stuff I've ever used in all of my years. Whenever I teach on soul winning or evangelism, it's the most powerful stuff I use. And I call it the 3 dimensions of a burden. And there are 3 dimensions of a burden. Therefore, there are 3 dimensions of a burden, 3 valid reasons for being involved in soul winning. Number 1, to save myself. Number 2, to save others. Number 3, for Jesus' sake. And I'm going to cover those in brief detail here, as much as it's possible for me to be brief and give you some detail. 2 Corinthians chapter 6 through chapter 5, 6 through 15 covers all 3 dimensions of a burden in just these few verses. I'm going to read them all before I comment. Therefore, we are always confident, verse 6, knowing that whilst we are home in the body, we're absent from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight. We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. Wherefore we labor, that whether present or absent, we may be accepted of him. We labor to be accepted of him. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body according to that he hath done, whether it be good or bad. Verse 11, knowing therefore the terror of the Lord, we persuade men, but are made manifest unto God, and I trust also are made manifest in your consciences. For we commend not ourselves again unto you, but give you occasion to glory on our behalf, that ye may have somewhat to answer them which glory in appearance and not in heart. For whether we be beside ourselves, it is to God, or whether we be sober, it is for your cause. Listen now. For the love of Christ constraineth us, because we thus judge that if one died for all, then we're all dead. And that he died for all, that they which live should not henceforth live unto themselves, but unto him which died for them and rose again. Dimension number 1 of a burden. I'm involved with the lost so that I can be saved, so that I will not be judged unworthy of heaven because I didn't care that I received it, but I didn't